Do you think that there's any form of rationing reallocation that would be acceptable? Take, for example, the high occupancy vehicle access only, so that single people driving cars would, in the peak hours, not be allowed on the road, or would be charged for going on the road.
No.
You don't think that would be acceptable at all?
No, I don't. I mean, charging.
Well, leaving aside charging for the
right,
moment, let's say access for the moment.
No, I don't think it would, because for some people, they cannot find a passenger. I mean, for example, if I decided to drive to work in the peak time, I don't. I get up at about 5:30 in the morning to avoid the queues. But if I decided to go at peak time, I'd be very hard pushed to find a passenger to take to work. So why should I be penalised? You know, I pay my road tax, I pay through the nose in petrol and in other ways. Why do I have to have another extra charge put upon me because I happen to, the only option I have is to drive on my own? And I'm a great fan of encouraging people to share. I'm a great fan of encouraging carpools. I think it is a great missed opportunity so far, and more should be done to look into it. But do it through encouragement, the carrot, rather than yet again the stick, where you use pounds and pence to punish people.
Well, the consequence of not adopting any form of rationing is that the congestion lasts for at least those 8 years, or gets worse for those 8 years, and probably that there is some spillover into the rest of the Essex roads. So, can you suggest any form of minimising the pressure on the road, reducing the stress on the road, that you think would be acceptable? You think your constituents would fit? I mean,
well, first of all, I'd do more to educate people and encourage them voluntarily to do sharing, carpools, etc., etc. I would also not write off alternative forms of transport for some people. I mean, if you look at the figures that Chelmsford Borough Council have supplied you with, which show the ins and the outs work-wise, with the ins, one of the significant areas was Colchester. I would encourage more people to use the railways, but you need to also adjust that, because certainly in the rush hour, which would also benefit my constituents who go on from Chelmsford to London, you know, maybe a few more carriages on the trains, providing the station lengths will take it. Again, it's a time thing, but if we could get a halt up at Springfield, I think that also would help. What else could you, I mean, but that's not really answering your question vis-a-vis specifically.
Well, that would definitely help. I mean,
that will help, but I mean, I cannot.
What about coaches?
Okay, well, coaches, again, if they would be reliable, etc. But if they're going up to the A12, they will have the same problems in the rush hour times. They'll have the same problems as me going on the A12 then, or anyone else.
Yes, but yes, presumably there'll be 29 other people on the coach and 25 fewer cars.
Well, if there is a direct correlation, then yes, I agree with you on that. If there is, I suspect there's somewhere between 1 and 20.
One of the, I mean, that's actually very helpful. There's two strands there. I think one is because we will be asking Network Rail and National Express to come along and also to talk to us. I don't think my colleagues necessarily know, but some of us know that services running through into Liverpool Street vary from actually 3 cars through to 12 cars if you look at the extremities of the two formations. And there is certainly potential, if the demand were there, to hang some more carriages onto 8-car trains to make them 12-car, for example. And I think, not perhaps with you, Mr. Burns, but with some other witnesses, we may want also to unpick issues to do with company travel planning, because as Councillor Gulliver said, for Chelmsford you've got about an almost balance of ins and outs, about 80,000 people into Chelmsford and out of Chelmsford each day. How many of those are coming in by car, sitting singularly, where they're working for companies or other organisations that could organise some car sharing? We may want to talk to some people about that, which is, my experience is a lot more effort went into school travel planning hitherto than went into company travel planning. And maybe there's more to be got. It doesn't solve the problem of the A12 in the end, but it may help with some short-term alleviation of the pain. Anything?
Not for me, thank you.
I just have an observation around the question. You used the word grim in your introductory remarks, I think, about the current situation, which I'm sure is right. In 8 years, for the sake of the argument, we give you the 3-lane enhancements, but meanwhile, nationally, traffic is expected to grow at 1% a year, and I think probably traffic's likely to grow more rapidly than the national average around here for the reasons you've given. Ports, housing developments. You were not enamoured with the idea of rationing use of this road. So in a year or two after you've got the 3-lane road open, you're going to be in the same position again, is my concern.
I'm not convinced you would be. Simply because if you're talking about eight years from now, in that 8 years, you've had time to get the rail companies to do something about the train service they're providing, the number of coaches, etc. You've also got time to bring pressure to have another station built up in the northeast of the town, which will help to assimilate some of the house building that's going to go on up there, and also take some of the existing people who may drive off the roads. And also, we've just had open down at Brook Street roundabout on the M25 an improved scheme, which I suspect is going to make a difference. It's certainly on the few times I've used it now since it was opened. It has made a difference coming onto the A12 from the M25. And I think that will alleviate things. And if you've then looked, particularly if there is a problem to the north of Chelmsford with some of the access and exit points, if you've looked at that and taken action there, I think it won't be the acceleration to a problem circa 2008 won't be as swift as you fear.
So you're essentially reasonably saying it's not just about the works on the A12, it's about a whole package of things just to keep pace with this.
Yeah. I think all nowadays, because of the scale and our love of the car, you've got to have a complete package. You can't look at things in isolation. I mean, if there's one thing that John Prescott did teach us in 1997, you've got to look at the whole thing, not just take one form of transport, try and deal with that without seeing how it relates to others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,